Tonight we've come to Inverness, and welcome to Question Time. And on our panel here in the Highlands, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Charles Kennedy, the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, Joanne Lamont, the former Conservative Secretary of State for Scotland, Michael Forsyth, the Daily Mail columnist, Melanie Phillips, a member of Alex Salmond's SNP cabinet, Alec Neil, and the actor, you may have seen him as a Bond villain in GoldenEye and a host of other films, Alan Cumming. Good, and welcome to you all on the panel. There are 6 of you, so if you can not speak for too long in reply to questions, everybody will get a chance, as well as our audience here who are bursting to ask you things. The first question is from Matthew Davis. Mr. Davis, please.
Have this weekend's Jubilee celebrations made us feel more British and damaged the campaign for independence?
Good
That would
question.
be the end
Charles
of the
Kennedy.
welfare state at a stroke.
Nonsense. We had a welfare state long before child benefit. Your memory doesn't go back very far, does it?
Well, there's a limit to how far back my memory can go by definition.
Clearly.
All right, we'll go on to another question. Joe Hallwood, please. Joe Hallwood.
Is it the job of the Germans to save Euroland?
Is it the job of the Germans to save Euroland or the Eurozone? Who would like to start on this? Melanie Phillips.
Well, Frau Merkel clearly wants desperately to save Euroland, as we can all see. Is it the job of the Germans to save Euroland? I don't think Euroland can be saved or should be saved. In my view, the real cause of what we're seeing is the fundamental incompatibility of the whole EU project, which tried to yoke together disparate nations with disparate economies on the fiction that they can all basically unite in a single currency without political union. And pretending that this whole thing isn't about political union at the end of the day, which in my view is fundamentally anti-democratic. I always thought that was the ultimate aim of the EU, to create one single state. I always thought it was very anti-democratic. And I always thought that the single currency, the euro, and the whole project was so fundamentally flawed because you cannot bring together all these nations in one project like this, that the thing was bound to collapse.
Do you want to see it collapse? And if it does collapse, what effect will it have on our economy?
Well, if it collapses, which I think it will, I think the effect on everyone, unfortunately, is going to be absolutely awful. There are ways of doing this, I think, or managing this better, which certainly our government doesn't seem to be agreeing with what I'm about to say, which is that people, that the countries that are in such difficulties, Greece, Spain, possibly Italy, the reason they're in difficulties is because they can't rescue their own economies. And the reason they can't rescue their own economies is because they are completely stuck because of the rules of the euro. In other words, what they have to do to rescue their economies is to come out of the euro. I'm not saying that this is going to be painless. Clearly, we're between a rock and a hard place here. Every alternative is going to be bad.
But you don't want to see, to go back to
term,
the question, you don't want to see the Germans come to the rescue at this stage of the Eurozone?
I don't think, if by coming to the rescue it means that the Germans have to bail out countries which have hit the buffers, then first of all, Germany can't do that. It doesn't have the money to do that. And secondly, it will simply stave off the day of final reckoning, because if countries are living beyond their means, if they are behaving in ways which are economically and fiscally totally imprudent, then ultimately they have to take control of themselves and behave in a responsible way. And if they are bailed out, they will never do that.
Thank you very much. The man in the middle there. You, sir.
It does occur to me that the Germans are very reluctant for any change to happen, because they do very nicely, thank you, out of the situation the way it is, with everybody, as the lady there is saying, stuck.
So what do you think their instinct is?
Protectionism. Protectionism.
Protectionism. Joanne?
Yeah, I mean, I think the really frightening thing about this is, despite the fact that there are experts here and experts there, actually nobody really knows what is going to happen. And that sense of chaos, of things being out of control, that people made decisions around the euro as a political project without thinking through actually what the economic consequences were, does make us wary for the future. But what I hope that in this we understand that at the centre of this, across Europe, there are ordinary families bearing a very heavy price for decisions that were not at their hand to make. And I think whatever they do across the Eurozone, it should be, across the leaderships in every country, they should be mindful that the people who are bearing that cost are bearing a very heavy cost. They didn't make the decision, and it may be that Germany may want to act one way or another. I think they must all come together to find a solution to this because of the consequences.
But so do you endorse what the German Chancellor said on German television, which was that there had to be more Europe, we need a political union first and foremost? Do you endorse that as an ambition? And is that the way to save the Eurozone in your view?
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be, as I've said, I think the focus must be on the consequence for individual economies across Europe. And all of the old certainties about how things were supposed to work need to be put to one side, and people need to come together and understand if they don't work together, then we will see devastation across Europe.
The woman up there on the left.
Whereas I don't think that Germany should certainly be responsible for Euroland, I really don't think that the United Kingdom should have to put our hands in our pockets to bail out the euro, as we're not a part of it.
And do you think there's a danger of that happening? Do you see
yes,
that
I do.
behind
I think
all the
there's a
talk?
huge danger of that happening with the International Monetary Fund.
And the woman there in spectacles, the second row from the back?
A precondition for entering Europe as a new country is to accept the euro in times B. So does that mean an independent Scotland is going to become part of the pigs? Is this going to happen in future?
Michael Versailles.
You're absolutely right. There is a period of time that you can adjust to it, but I can't get my head around this concept of independence where some other central bank and some other government sets your interest rates and so on. I mean, I think the point that was made by Melanie explains exactly how this euro experiment is going to end in disaster and cannot be made to work. I remember years ago when I was in frontline politics, Nicholas Ridley being forced to resign from our government because he'd given an interview to The Spectator in which he described the whole euro project as a German racket. And what has been going on here is that the Germans have, through the euro, been able to have a very competitive exchange rate, which has enabled them to sell their BMWs. And the Greeks and the Italians and others have had a very uncompetitive exchange rate, and their standard of living is being crushed. And if we continue with this project, this euro is going to destroy the prospects for our young people across Europe, is going to create social division and tension. And the Germans are never going to agree to pick up the tab. Now, Alex will remember 20 years ago, there was a big campaign run by the SNP in Scotland. And they said, Scotland is paying the price of high interest rates for the overheating economy in the southeast of England. And I found it really difficult to deal with because they were absolutely right. Within our monetary union, within the United Kingdom, it is very hard to set interest rates which will cover the United Kingdom with all our integrated facilities. You cannot do it for countries as diverse as Cyprus and Germany and Spain. And we have a political class which have hung their hats on this euro thing, and they are prepared to do anything other than admit that they were wrong and abandon this project and go back to what we signed up for, which was a free trade area, not a country called Europe, where countries made their own decisions. And the supreme irony for us in Scotland is that the party which talks about independence in Europe would actually shackle us to the kind of disastrous position which the Greeks see themselves in now. So we have to find a reverse gear and get out of this. There's no way the Germans are going to take this forward, and I don't agree with the Prime Minister when he says that we must encourage Europe to take the action to create a Europe with a euro. That will be disastrous for Europe, disastrous for our markets, and disastrous for our young people who have so much idealism about the concept of Europe as an open
David,
market.
just for hold on a second. I come to you. The man behind. Right.
Apart from the fact that, yeah, I agree that, Europe shows that economic unity doesn't work without political unity. and for independence, that's a bit dodgy. But the answer hasn't been, the question hasn't been answered. Something's got to happen. Cameron and Obama both said today that something's got to happen and quickly. So if it's not the job of the Germans, I mean, it's got to be the job of someone to save the euro, because otherwise it has such huge repercussions on the world economy.
All right.
Can I say
you want to answer his point?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key point is, whether you're talking about political union or against political union, we are now in a crisis situation and urgent action is needed, not in 6 months' time, 9 months' time. Exactly. Urgent action is needed now, and there has to be a strategic decision taken by the Europeans. Are they going to, with German money and French money and etc., bail out the Greeks and the Spaniards and the Portuguese and others, or are they going to allow them to leave the euro? Now, there is an inherent flaw in the euro, because productivity in Greece is about 37% lower than productivity, for example, in Germany. And that's why we're in the position we're in today in the euro. That has to be solved. There are two ways to solve it. You either completely all are in this together in Euroland and help each other and basically financial way out of it, or you allow the Greeks and potentially the Portuguese, potentially even the Italians, potentially the Spaniards to leave the euro. Either way, the key point is a decision has to be made. They cannot put this decision off much longer.
Is it the
and
job?
The minute we know the election result in Greece, I believe the markets will go wild and they could run out of time.
Is it the job of the Germans, as the questioner put it, to save the Eurozone?
I think they have a big role to play in saving the Eurozone because, quite frankly, by far they're the strongest economy and they have a strategic decision to make as a country. Are they going to allow Greece and the others to falter and leave the Eurozone, which has got huge implications for everybody, or are they going to bail them out, which has also got huge implications for everybody? But this dithering, and it's neither one thing nor the other, is the worst of all possible worlds. We need leadership. That's what we need, leadership.
Alan Cumming.
Well, you know, it's a mess. It's a total mess, and I think the world's economy has been a total mess since 2007. And it seems to me that this whole thing, we talk about who should take responsibility for it, when actually the real reason we're in this mess is because a lot of bankers were gambling with our money, with our country's money, with our own money, and a lot of greedy bankers got us into this. They weren't regulated by our governments, and that, I think, it has to happen. All these countries in Europe have to have much stricter regulations on the financial sector, and hopefully we'll never get into this mess ever again.
Hold on. The woman there in purple, then I come to you in front, so yes.
I agree with a lot of what Alan just said, but I also think a lot of the problem with Greece is the problems that existed in the country 10, 15 years ago, and I don't think it can all be blamed on the banking system. I think it's the culture and the economy of the country before it joined the euro. So maybe Germany has some blame to take there in allowing Greece to join the euro in the first place.
Okay. And you, sir?